1970, a woman named Donna was gearing up to graduate from college with the hopes of becoming a nurse. Donna had lived a fairly regular life up until this point. However, her life was about to become anything but. For her birthday, her mother had the idea to get Donna a Raggedy Ann doll. Perhaps this was a way to remind Donna that she'd always be her little girl. Or maybe it was a nod to Donna's childhood, given to elicit feelings of nostalgia. Whatever the reason was, Donna loved it, and upon getting home the night that she received the doll, she laid it on her bed as decoration. But it wouldn't stay there long. It started off subtle, a small move of the arm and a slight shift in position, just barely enough to notice, but not enough to cause too much concern. I mean, after all, gravity can always be blamed when a doll shifts its position slightly, but gravity couldn't explain what would happen next. Donna and her roommate Angie would come home and find that the doll had moved. And I don't mean moved positions, it allegedly moved rooms. When they would leave, it would be in Donna's room, and when they would get back, it would appear in a completely different room. The Raggedy Ann doll would be found in a random spot with its legs crossed and its arms folded, staring blankly at the bewildered girls. And in some instances, they claim that the doll was found standing upright on its feet, just standing there, seemingly defying gravity. And as scary as all this was, it was nothing compared to what the doll would do next. Over the next month, Donna and Angie began to find handwritten notes across their house. The notes were written in handwriting that was consistent with that of a young child's, and the messages would typically read, "Help us." Now interestingly, the paper that was used to write these messages was not a type of paper that Angie or Donna would ever buy or had ever bought, meaning that the paper didn't come from within the house, leading them to wonder who or what it belonged to. One night, Donna returned to the house to find that the doll had once again moved on its own, but this time it had moved back onto her bed. An overwhelming sense of dread came over her as she approached the doll. She had found the doll in other rooms many times before, but she had a feeling that this time was different. As she examined the doll, she was horrified to discover that there was blood dripping from its hands and its chest. The blood seemingly had no origin, but it seemed as if it was splattered on the doll. Now Donna and Angie knew that something was going on here, but what exactly was still a mystery. And in order to try and solve it, they contacted a medium. The medium agreed to help them, and they conducted a seance at the apartment. Now during the session, a spirit revealed itself by stating that she was the spirit of Annabelle Higgins. The spirit claimed that she had lived on the property long before the apartments were there, and that these were happy times for her. She would go on to say that by the age of just 7, she passed away on the very land that the apartments were built. Annabelle finished by saying that she liked Donna and Angie, and that she felt comfortable around them, that she wanted to stay there and be loved by them. Now obviously shocked by the story that the spirit had told them, Donna and Angie became sympathetic towards her, and they actually gave her permission to stay within the doll and to stay within the house. And little did they know, but they had just made a tragic mistake. One night, a friend of Donna and Angie's was spending the night at the apartment. The man's name was Lou, and he had been at the apartment on multiple occasions and was already quite familiar with Annabelle. However, he didn't share the same compassion for her. He was scared of the doll, and he even tried to warn them that it was evil and that it should be removed from the household altogether. His warning fell on deaf ears. That night, Lou woke up from a horrible dream drenched in sweat and shaking. Terrified, Lou tried to get up and move, but he realized he couldn't. Lou was paralyzed in his sleep. Trapped on his bed, he shifted his eyes around throughout the darkness of the room. That's when he saw it. Annabelle was laid out by his feet, staring directly at him. Slowly, the doll began to glide up his leg and then up his chest. All the while, Lou laid there helplessly, unable to move. As the doll stared at him, it suddenly reached its hands out and began to strangle Lou. With no way of moving or fighting back, Lou could only lay there as he slowly passed out due to lack of oxygen. Now luckily for Lou, he woke up the next morning, but he was sure that this was no dream, and this whole event just reaffirmed his belief that this doll was in fact evil. The next day, Angie and Lou were alone in their apartment when they heard rustling coming from Donna's room. Fearful of an intruder, The two rushed into the room only to find that Annabelle was tossed into the corner. Lou searched the room for an intruder, but as his focus shifted to Annabelle, he began to feel as if someone were behind him. A quick turn of his head revealed that his suspicion was incorrect. However, a sudden piercing pain ripped through his chest and he doubled over in pain. He looked down and realized that blood was soaked through his shirt. Once unbuttoned, it revealed 7 claw marks across his chest, each of which were hot to the touch and bleeding heavily. The gashes were deep, but somehow they fully healed within just 2 days, leaving behind not a single scar. So at this point, we can clearly tell that this doll was not possessed by a 7-year-old girl. It was probably possessed by something very demonic. And Donna had finally realized that. Now, after contacting the church, the Warrens were called in to investigate this case. And if you guys don't know who the Warrens are, well, they're basically the power couple of paranormal research. Their resume is absolutely crazy. I'm not really going to get into it too much. This video, I might save it for another one, but let's just say that they were more than capable of taking care of this job. Ed and Lorraine Warren determined that the doll was possessed by an inhumane spirit, and that the spirit had manipulated Donna into believing that it was a little girl. This was done in order for the spirit to eventually possess Donna herself. Or in other words, the spirit that was attached to this doll was looking for a human host. The Warrens believed that if things had continued at this pace for another 2 to 3 weeks, that it was likely that all the home's inhabitants would have been killed. In order to assure that this doll wouldn't harm anyone ever again, the Warrens decided to take it home with them and add it to their collection of haunted artifacts. The spirit did not go silently, though. While driving home from Donna's house, the Warrens' car began to swerve violently out of control. The steering and the brakes suddenly failed, and the car was at the mercy of the inhumane spirit that was attached to the doll. Terrified, Ed reached his hand back and grabbed a vial of holy water and doused it on the doll, while making the sign of the cross. Immediately after doing so, the car regained steering, and the activity stopped. Once home, a priest was brought over to bless the doll. While there, he looked at Annabelle and he said, "You're just a rag doll, Annabelle. You can't hurt anyone." Which, my guy, you can't do that. A few hours after the priest had left the house, he called the Warrens in a panic, saying that his brakes had failed and that his car drove directly into a crowded intersection. The car crashed and was instantly totaled, and the priest nearly lost his life. Now, this is one instance that really showed the true power of Annabelle, and the Warrens knew that it was only going to get stronger. And so, in order to contain the spirit and protect the world from Annabelle, they decided to build that infamous box for her. And though this is probably where the story should end, there's still one more chapter to it, and it's honestly the most tragic one. A young couple had visited the Annabelle doll in the Warrens' occult museum. Upon hearing Ed's warnings and stories about the doll, the young man clearly did not believe what he heard. He went right up to the glass and began pounding on it, shouting for the doll to scratch him up, which is pretty kinky. Shocked by their behavior, Ed told the two to leave immediately. So the two hopped on their motorcycle and drove away laughing and making fun of the supposedly haunted doll. As the two laughed, the man lost control of his motorcycle and crashed head-on into a tree. The collision killed him instantly. His girlfriend survived but was kept in the hospital for nearly a year. Once released, she confessed to laughing at the doll and how, as they were doing so, they lost control of the vehicle. Because of the circumstances, this death is said to be the work of the supposedly contained doll. Because of this, Ed warned people not to challenge the doll because, quote, "No man is more powerful than Satan." Now, some final thoughts on the story. First of all, this doll is scarier to me than this doll. I'm just saying. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Let me know what you think. Now, to me, this story is spooky and mysterious, but I can't necessarily speak to its validity. It is possible that this is just another creepy ghost story that was created by the Warrens to boost their popularity. But at the same time, it's also possible that these events actually did happen, and that Annabelle truly is possessed by a demonic entity. And I think the fact that no one truly knows if it's real or fake just kind of adds to the intrigue of this whole story. And though I don't necessarily have an opinion on whether it's real or not, I can say one thing for sure. I sure as hell would not mess with this doll.